David Lutes, welcome to the conversation today.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
It is a pleasure to be with you. You're joining us from outside of St. Louis, Missouri. I'm south of Salt Lake City in Utah. And today we're going to be talking about talent management and the employee life cycle. Very, very important topic. I know it's something that a lot of organizations are always struggling with. It's interesting. Over the last several years, of course, we had a pandemic, and then we had, these terms that were thrown around, quiet quitting, et cetera. And it's been a fairly volatile labor market and kind of ups and downs, and it's been at times a seller's market, a buyer's market, and right now it's a little bit harder for employees looking for a shift or a change than it was a year ago or so. But because of skills gaps, because of disruptive technologies, et cetera, it continues to be an issue, and it will continue to be an issue in the talent realm. So we're going to unpack this and discuss this together today. As we get started, I wanted to share David's bio with everybody. Former pastor in South Africa, UK, and the Middle East, David Lutes is now an organizational development, talent management, and training consultant, and master trainer and executive coach, and well-known conference speaker, and has more than 30 years of international experience in 30 plus countries at a senior strategic executive, middle management, and operational level with several global Fortune 100, 250, 500 companies. Published author and a regular conference presenter. He is an expert in this space, especially internationally, and I am just so thrilled to have the opportunity to sit down and talk with you today. David, anything else you would like to highlight by way of your background or personal context before we dive on in?
No, I'd love to meet this guy. He sounds amazing.
And I have to say, I'm jealous. I love to travel, and the 30 plus countries,
It's actually
all of
40.
the
It's actually
international
40.
experience,
It's
all of that
42 as
just
of last week.
32 countries,
40,
all of
40,
that just sounds
42.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, the air miles have mounted up and the glamour wore off a long time ago. So
No, I get that. The actual travel itself, going on planes, not my favorite. Staying in a hotel,
yeah.
not my favorite, but I love visiting new places,
Yeah.
new things to see, new people to meet, new cultures to learn about. All of that is just so exciting, and you've had a wonderful career. Well, let's dive on in,
Okay.
and if you can frame up for us kind of your general philosophy and view around talent management and employee life cycle. We have general practices in the United States, but you also do so much across the globe in non-Western countries. Tell us a little bit about your work and how you think of talent management and employee life cycle.
Well, thanks for the question and the comment about the travel and work all over the show is a nice segue into what I'm becoming more focused and even borderline fanatical about. And that's that I launch a lot of my coaching, consulting, presentations, training, whatever, with a question. And this, regardless of location, regardless of culture, I frame it in a way that allows the audience or the group to answer it. What do you believe about people? What do you believe about people? Do you believe people are basically good? Do you believe people can be invested in that they can change, become a bad person to a good person, and vice versa? Do you believe people are hungry to learn? Do you believe people are welcome the idea of being stretched, of having a challenge in their career, in their job, whatever, and I give this long list of questions, and I get answers depending on the culture and context, of course.
Yeah.
But one of the things that is common, and I connect this then with a lot of the global surveys that have been done regarding why do people stay? Why do people
Yeah.
give more? Why do people hang in there? Best place to work, employer of choice, investor in people, whatever the standard is that an organization aspires to. This I connect the what do you believe about people, blah, 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 on the one side with the standards on the other. But then depending on the answers, I will do a deep dive into culture. And I will look at, I'll create a dichotomy between command and control, autocratic, militaristic model, and an empowered culture. And I create a tension there that says it's either or. And of course they react and say, well, it's not either or. And I get them to say, it depends on the context, etc. Long story short, there are three things that have turned up and that are framing almost everything I do. And I don't want to name drop location because it sounds very exotic, but I was working with senior government officials in the Fiji Islands, Solomon Islands, Vanuatu a couple of weeks ago. And I have never been there. I've worked in India, I've worked in Jakarta, I've worked in Malaysia and other places, but I'd never been to this location. And I was surprised at how clearly they were thinking about those questions. And the things that came up, the three things that came up, number one, oh, sorry, I want to just say one thing I set them up to do as well. I say, well, based on the surveys and the standards and the benchmarks that are out there, here are the top 10 reasons why people give more, work harder.
I lost you, David.
And these guys came up with it so clearly. Number one, we want to know where we fit. And the description, the definition of that is, I have a job, I have a description, I have a boss who tells me what to do or empowers me to do my own thing, whatever. But the point is that I people stay longer because they know that they are valued, respected, appreciated, and their job makes a contribution to the overall mission vision of the organization. And I was surprised because that's my number three. I dropped that down to number three. But
Mm,
no, their number two was my number one, and that's that the organization invests in me. I have a career path. Training and development isn't just attendance at courses. Um, I know I'm not competent just because I attended a training course or got a certificate. I'm competent because the organization allows me to demonstrate what I think I've learned on the job. Number two, in my lists, and they came up with it as well, is a relationship with the line manager. And
hmm
the old adage is people don't leave organizations, they leave bad managers.
Yeah.
Well, and the third one, in the mix of those top three, was communication. Just the idea that I am heard. There are many different ways for me to share my opinion. They are welcomed. Therefore, I fit. Therefore, I feel valued. And and underpinning all of this, which surprised me completely, the first time it's ever come up in the last 10 years, servant leadership.
Mm.
I feel like the senior leadership team, they are not just interested in the bottom line. Well, in the government, they don't care about that over there, but it's not just about the investors' happiness. It's not just about reputation or getting reelected. There is a genuine heart commitment to show people that I want to push you up. I want you to succeed, not just because it's a right and good thing to do, but because it's also smart business. And all of those standards are beginning to say the same thing now, that if you will invest in people in this way and you will push them up and serve them and develop an empathetic listening ear, therefore communication. If you will give good feedback and delegation, therefore I know where I fit and I'm supported, well, everybody wins. And this has been, it's amazing how I've decided servant leadership is going to be my message forever. It works at home. My wife tells me what to do and I do it. You know, it's really simple. Uh, but with my kids, with my community, with my church, wherever, if I can adopt a heart that says, I care about you enough to listen to your pain or to listen to your issues, to hear between the lines enough to be someone that can contribute to your growth, help you learn, grow, improve. Well, that's my heart. And I'm
Mm.
discovering that so many leaders and managers don't know how to do this, but want to. Anyway, I'm having big debates on LinkedIn at the moment about the whole question of empathy, where that comes in, but that's another topic for another day.
Yeah, well, let me just say there's a lot that you shared there that I really that resonates with me that I really like. First, this foundational kind of philosophical starting point and assumption about people and the value of people and how people interact with each other and approach their work. Uh, there are definitely people that do bad things. There's definitely people who exploit, who take advantage of, who are jerks and just hard to be around, etc. But most people, I truly believe, get up in the morning, wanting to do the best they can, wanting to do right by others, wanting to just find happiness and meaning and purpose. And in work, we spend, the vast majority of our waking hours in our life at work. And so, of course, work is one of the primary mechanisms for us to find that meaning and purpose, to build community, to build relationships, and to do, to stretch and grow and to do things that bring value to our lives. And I truly believe that most people approach work that way. Now, some are better workers than others, and sometimes it depends on context. It depends on the people around them. It depends on how good of a fit they are with the position they happen to be in, et cetera. There's a thousand things that we have to consider. But if we start with the general premise that people are good and trying to do good, I think we just interact with people in a dramatically different way. I'm thinking of a particular organization I've done some work with recently, and I get it. Like we live in a litigious society. I understand that compliance is important, but their culture has moved so far towards just strict compliance, punitive actions, etc. Like it's they won't say this. Like if you press leadership and ask them the question, they will not say, we think our people are terrible, but all of their behaviors and actions communicate that we don't trust you, that we think you're trying to get away with stuff, that we think you're trying to hurt the organization, etc., rather than how can we best support you? How can we help you achieve? How can we help you be successful? How can we help remove barriers to drive your success, etc.? They're two very different ways of approaching how you're going to interact with your people. And that really goes into servant leadership.
Yeah,
I get that some people don't like the term servant leadership just because
sure.
they feel like it's a little bit too soft. I don't think it needs to be a soft thing, though. I think
Yeah.
it's servant leadership is all about what I feel is probably the most important thing a leader can do, and that is investing in your people to develop your bench strength and to help others be ready for the next stage in their career, whether that's with your organization or within another organization. If you look at like coaching, the best coaches are not just those that win. The best coaches are those that have a pedigree in a kind of a genealogy of all of the offshoots
Absolutely.
of all the great coaches that have come from them, that have worked with them. You look at all the great coaches in any sport, and that's in part how you track it. Like what great coaches worked with them and then went off and did their own great stuff. It's the same thing in organizations, and that's partially at least servant leadership, because I'm focused not on me, I'm focused on the individual, I'm focused on trying to meet them where they're at, to develop them, to support them, and I'm going to do whatever I can to lift them up and to help them become the best they can possibly be. I love that mindset. I find that most people agree generally with that mindset, though people quibble over the terms that are used, etc. But where the rubber really meets the road, there's a huge gap oftentimes between kind of espoused values, aspirational goals, what we think matters and is important versus like what we actually do in the day to day
Yeah.
and how we interact with our people. And that's where we get to such a huge disconnect oftentimes in organizations around these talent management issues.
Well, I'm going to share a personal story very quickly. I transitioned out of ministry where, of course, I had a set of values that I believe about helping people to learn, grow, improve, and have a whole life, wholeness. And when I transitioned out, I found myself in England working part-time on a voluntary basis with unemployed people through the different churches, wanting to help them rediscover purpose, meaning, direction, etc. Then I found myself in a real job helping to with major downsizing of big industries. And these people were being laid off, made redundant, as they say there. Now we have to reskill them, re-equip them, redirect them to find new work. As a result of that, I was heard about a project that was funded by the European Social Fund that was exactly what I wanted to do. I mean, I said, this is my heart. And the project budget was great. And I interviewed it through the stages and I got to the boss. Finally, the final decision was going to be made this day. I walked into his office and he barely shook my hand, barely looked in my eye, and he kind of said, sit. And I sat there and he'd read my resume, while we sat there. And then he kind of threw it on the desk and he said, I don't think you can do this job. I said, okay, really? Why? And he said, well, I see you're a moral, ethical, spiritual guy, that you care about this and that and the other thing, in terms of, respect and all the good stuff that comes with, hopefully, a pastor has. And he said, I don't care. You need to understand something. I don't care who I hurt. I don't care who I walk over. I don't care who, if I lie, I cheat, I if somebody gets in my way, I roll over them. I win. That's what I do. And it reminded me of Keanu Reeves, in The Devil's Advocate, when he says to whatever what's the other actor, I win. That's what I do. And he, in the process of telling me how much he wins and how much he doesn't care and how much he will lie and cheat and steal to get there, I'm saying, not only I'm just surprised that someone has these kind of values, and would be not ashamed to talk about them, but he broke about 10 UK labor laws while he was interviewing me. And I said to him, so I'm at point of decision. And I said, look, Mr. So-and-so, I really don't know I can do this job. I believe I can do it well. I can believe I can make the department look good, the organization look good, and make you look good while I do it. But I'll tell you my biggest problem. I don't know. I'm worried what people will think of me if they know I work for you. Is that a wise interviewing? And he looked at me shocked, and he smiled, stood up, shook my hand, and said, "You got the job." And 6 months later, he was escorted from the building in handcuffs for stealing money from my project. So long story short, the thing that we, and I said it briefly, is that in the process of that kind of conversation, I'm discovering a philosophy of management that was put forward by a famous guru called Dr. Deming. He's the father of total quality management. And he talks about breaking down barriers, driving out fear, restoring joy, pride of workmanship, instilling leadership, on the job training, continuous learning. And I'm going, yes, 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 I can do that. That's what I want to do. And not only because it resonated with me personally, spiritually, ethically, morally, whatever, but I began to learn this is smart business. And the problem that I've discovered in other parts of the world is that the website of the organization says, we believe our people are our most valuable asset. We believe in investing in our people. We believe we are a community. We are a family, yada, yada, yada. And then you go in and you scratch a little bit deeper and you ask the ordinary people, why have you got a 41% turnover rate of your middle and upper management team? Well, because we don't practice what we preach. And so what I'm discovering is that two things. One is that not everybody cares. Not to contradict what you mentioned earlier, but some people, not everybody wants more. So if you look at the 9-box grid for when you're looking at succession planning or identifying high potentials, there's the middle box of about 55% of your population are just solid contributors that don't aspire to leadership. They don't want to run the show. They just want to do a good job, feel good about it when they go home at the end of the day. Then you've got your higher, lower percentage, in the different corners of the box of the grid. And I'm beginning to discover that the people that contribute for the ongoing day-to-day solid productivity are the people that actually care about their job, but also care about the people they work with. And if you ask them, what are the top 10 reasons why you stay? I like the people I work with. I like the job I do. I like the way I'm asked to do it. I like the support my manager gives me. The other thing that I'm discovering is that people can't walk the talk. There is a heart issue here. They can fake it, and after a time, you can fake some empathy. You can fake listening. You can fake serving, if you like. You can go through the motions and sort of perform like you really do want to push people up, and you're a good servant leader. But that grows old very fast. And anyway, I'm discovering that there are ways to package the message of servant leadership that doesn't make people feel like meekness and humility equals weakness. It's actually a smart business message as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so much research on the power. Well, first of all, how good leaders need to have emotional intelligence, right?
Sure.
And the power of things like empathy and connecting with your people, etc. And so whether we're talking about servant leadership or empathy or any of these other topics, there's no question that the modern leader needs to have these soft skills to be
Yep.
effective. And there are definitely 100%, there are people like that boss from your story who are unethical, who are willing to stomp all over people to get to where they want to go. I do believe that most people aren't like that,
I agree.
thankfully. And so it's not a either or though. Like I think a lot of people think you either have to be like
Yeah.
cutthroat
Yep.
and then make money, or or you're like soft, you focus on empathy, servant leadership, etc., and then people walk all over you and you don't make any money and you go out of business. Like that's a false dichotomy. You in fact, there's so much research that shows when you support your people, when you connect with them, when you show empathy towards them, when you have emotional intelligence and those soft skills as a leader, you have better teams, you have more creative and innovative teams, which leads to greater productivity, better products and services. It leads to a stronger bottom line. So there's a clear
Yeah.
business case for servant leadership. There's a clear
Absolutely.
human case for servant leadership.
Yeah.
And all of this comes back to how do we attract and retain the very best people to be in our organizations and to not just take for granted that we're always going to have an endless supply of people we can churn through. Because if you have this mentality that we're just going to chew people up and spit them out and get every last ounce of productivity we can out of somebody before they get fed up and leave, guess what? In the modern world of work, you are probably not going to be very relevant for very long because
Yeah.
you're not going to get enough people to churn through. It just isn't possible. And so in this modern world where we're talking about labor shortages across so many industries and so many skill areas, we need to do better. Leaders need to do better.
And there's a point. I love that point. The is not everybody can have this sort of soft and warm and fuzzy heart that we sort of equate with being emotionally intelligent and being a servant leader. But I'm going to claim a claim to fame that I have in the Middle East, at least, is Dave Lutes says, "Don't boil the ocean, boil a teacup."
Hmm.
And I keep telling leaders all over the show, you can't change if the culture's toxic, if there is a negative cycle of some form, or that people believe that performance is the only way they're going to be accepted and cared about, and image and status and privilege is associated with who you know, not what you do, etc. The point that I'm saying to people, you may not have this empathetic heart, but there are things that you can do. A couple of teacups that you can boil. Make some time to talk
Yeah.
and practice hearing between the lines. Practice listening to understand, not to reply. That old adage. You can make by understanding the skills of delegation, phase delegation. It's that takes time. It takes listening. It takes feedback skills. These aren't hardcore, you know, rocket science skills. These are things that you can do that will actually make your life easier and better as a leader and as a manager. And by the way, your people will love you. Now, you
Yeah.
may not come across as, sort of the Mr. Nice person all the time. But if you're consistent about boiling those few teacups, trust will grow. And there will come a time when you have to be the hard guy, the dictator, or there's a time when you have to be a coach or something else. Well, they're going to trust you. It depends
Yeah.
on what is needed. But if you build that trust and you do it consistently, boil a few teacups, you'll win. You don't have to be this definition of the empathetic, caring guy, who's so emotionally intelligent that he's like a saint. We can blow that one away. There's some practical things you can do that demonstrate good servant leadership without calling it that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, David, this has just been a great conversation. I note the time I need to let you go, but before we wrap things up for today, I wanted to give you a chance to share with the audience how they can connect with you, find out more about your work, and then give us the final word on the topic for today.
Okay, well, two things. LinkedIn's the best place at the moment. I've got a new website that'll be set up later this week. We're calling it Under New Management. It has got a Christian perspective to it, but it still focuses on how to help people find purpose, meaning, and direction for their career and for their life. That's the mission. So that's there. And watch this space. There will be a book coming out later this year called Passion and Excellence, which is basically a guide for leaders and people aspiring to leadership and management who want to get grounded in the principles of, I don't know, of building your life in the right way. And then the last thing I'll say, go to Brains Magazine, BRAINZ. I'm an executive contributor there. I've done my 9th article out of 12 on this very subject. And it's not from a Christian perspective, but there's a big podcast there and a big interview, but all those articles are built to just be really, really helpful to help people build. So if there's a final message that I would share is, don't boil the ocean. Start small. You can't change the world overnight. Change your part of the world, wherever you have your sphere of influence, where you have some authority, some power, some respect. Start there. And be consistent. And the message that came out of our thing last week in Fiji was consistency and humility. Just be consistently humble. It'll take you miles down the road. And then
Yeah.
you don't need a following, but you'll have a lot of people that'll love you for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. David, thank you so much. This has been a real pleasure. I
My
encourage the
pleasure.
audience to reach out, get connected, find out more about what David can do for you. And as always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope